December the 17th. The date feels arbitrary now, just another number on the slow march toward the end of the year. Outside my window, Frostwood is sleeping under a sky the color of dull slate. It's the quiet time, the waiting time. My name is Alex, and if you're hearing this, well, maybe you're looking for answers, or maybe you've just found my phone tucked away somewhere, and you're curious about the ramblings of some local kid. Either way, this is a record of the rules. Not the rules you find in a handbook, but the ones written in the chill of the air and the silence of our elders. You have to understand, in a town like this, traditions aren't about celebration. They're about preservation, about maintaining a delicate and spoken balance. My grandmother understood this better than anyone. When I was small, she'd sit with me by this very window, her knitting needles clicking a soft counter rhythm to the clock, and she'd tell me about the 3 admonitions. She never called them rules. She called them admonitions, warnings. Her voice would drop to a whisper as if the walls themselves might be listening, and she'd impart them like sacred truths. The first admonition concerns the snow. Not just any snow, but the first snow. The one that transforms the world into a blank and touch page. When it falls, you let it lie. You do not rush out into that perfect white expanse. You do not make the first footprint. You do not carve the first sled track. And you absolutely, under no circumstances, make the first snow angel. You wait. You wait for the world to intrude, for the postman's heavy boots, for the neighbor's cat, for the scatter of bird tracks like forgotten punctuation. Only when the purity has been comfortably marred, only then is the snow considered, say, neutralized. My grandmother would say, you must let the old season settle its accounts before you make your mark. I never knew what accounts she meant. The second admonition is about the gift. If you find a present wrapped in plain paper, never festive, always a dull brown or a gray, and if it bears no name and no tag, no indication of its sender or its recipient, you do not open it. The impulse will be there. The curiosity will burn in your chest, but you must smother it. You do not shake it to guess its contents. You do not bring it fully into your home before the sun rises on the day after you find it. You must take it to the old willow tree that stands at the crossroads, where the last street lamp flickers out. You place it among the gnarled, weeping roots, and you walk away. You do not look back. My father, when he was a boy, found one in his family's woodshed. He told me once, his eyes distant, that he carried it the whole mile to the willow in the dead of night and the entire way. He felt like the package was growing heavier, warmer, as if something inside was waking up. And then the third admonition, the bell. On Christmas Eve, the bell from the town square is a sound of joy. It's communal. It binds us together. But if you hear a different bell, a single, clear, piercing tone, like a silver bell tied to the collar of some unseen creature, and if that sound comes from the wrong direction, from the alley behind the shops, from the path leading into the pines, from the darkness of your own backyard, then a specific procedure must be followed. You stop. You become very still. And then, with deliberate calm, you begin to walk. You do not run. Running implies panic, and panic is an invitation. You do not call out. You walk steadily toward the nearest source of crowd noise, toward the lights of the square. And you never, ever, under any condition, turn your head to seek the source of the sound. To look is to acknowledge. To acknowledge is to incur a debt. My grandmother's words, the bell calls for an auditor. Do not make eye contact with the accountant. For years, I treated these admonitions as charming quirks, the kind of folklore that gives a small town its character. My parents, though they observe them with a solemn, fearful diligence, it's in their eyes when the first flake falls. It's in the careful way my mother handles any unmarked mail. We have this ritual object in our hallway, an advent calendar, but it's not for chocolate. It's a piece of aged linen embroidered by my great-grandmother. 3 symbols are stitched upon it, a single, intricate snowflake, a simple, tied box, and a lone, clapperless bell. Each day of December, my mother moves a single, black enameled pin from one day to the next. Her movements are precise, reverent. It's less a countdown to celebration and more a vigil, a daily reinforcement of the barrier. I used to tease her about it. Now, I just watch. And a cold, formless doubt has begun to pool in the bottom of my stomach. The first snow is forecast for tomorrow. The air is hushed, holding its breath. We'll see what happens. December 21st, or maybe it's already the 22nd. Time gets fluid in the dead of night. It's 3:04 a.m. according to the green glow of my clock. I couldn't sleep. There was a pressure in the room, a static electricity in the air that had nothing to do with the weather. So I was just lying here, propped against my pillows, watching the silent drama outside my window. The world was monochrome, a study in blues and blacks and the pure, luminous white of new-fallen snow. It was breathtaking, truly. For a moment, all the rules, all the whispered warnings felt like nonsense. This was just beauty, untouched, serene beauty. And then movement. A shadow detaching itself from the deeper shadows of the Hendersons' porch. It was Bandit, Old Man Henderson's dog. A big, shaggy, good-natured beast with more enthusiasm than sense had slipped his collar again. He stood for a moment on the porch steps, a dark statue, nose twitching at the cold air. Then, with a sudden burst of joy, he bounded down into the yard. He was glorious. He raced in wide, looping circles, kicking up plumes of powder. He buried his snout and came up with a frosty beard. He snapped at falling flakes. He was the very embodiment of unchecked, innocent delight in the face of the season's first magic. I smiled, a real, uncomplicated smile, and then, as if to crown his performance, he threw himself onto his back with a comical, weighty flop. His legs pedaled the air, his tail swept a wide, joyous arc. He was making a snow angel, a perfect, dog-shaped impression in the untouched canvas of the yard. The first admonition, broken, not by malice, not by rebellion, but by pure, simple canine joy. A laugh, dry and quiet, escaped my lips. I fumbled for my phone on the nightstand. This was proof. I'd capture it. I'd show it to my parents in the morning as a gentle joke. See, the world didn't end. The old stories are just stories. I turned on the camera, the screen's light harsh in the dark room, and zoomed in on Bandit's happy form. But the laugh died in my throat, because Bandit stopped. His joyful wiggling ceased mid-motion. His legs froze, suspended awkwardly in the air. His head, which had been lolling back in goofy abandon, slowly turned. Not toward the warm, yellow light of his own kitchen door, no. He turned his muzzle toward the far end of the yard, where our neatly trimmed grass gives way to a tangle of blackberry bushes, and beyond that, to the wall of ancient pine trees that everyone here just calls the woods. His body went rigid, every muscle taut. He made a sound, not a bark of alarm, not a growl of threat. It was a low, guttural whine that seemed to start in the very pit of his stomach and crawl its way out. A sound of primal confusion so deep it instantly became fear. Unadulterated, instinctual fear. And then the smell reached me. My window was cracked open just an inch to let in the cold, clean air. But the air wasn't clean anymore. It carried a new scent. It was damp and profound. It smelled of wet clay dug from deep underground, of moss-covered stones lying at the bottom of a sunless well, and underpinning it all, a sickly sweet note of decay like fruit left to rot in a sealed jar. It was a smell that had no business in a winter garden. It was the smell of cellar earth and forgotten things. It lasted only a few seconds. Then it was simply gone, as if a door had been closed somewhere. Bandit didn't hesitate. He scrambled to his feet, a frenzy of sudden motion. He didn't look back at the house, didn't whine for help. He became a streak of terrified shadow, shooting across the white yard and vanishing into the absolute blackness between the pine trees. Gone. He left behind his chain, a heavy, steel-linked thing. It lay cold on the snow near the porch steps, a dark snake on a white field, and he left behind his angel. The crisp, perfect impression in the snow. In the moonlight, it no longer looked playful. The deep shadows filled the indentations of his body, making it look less like an angel and more like an imprint, a fossil, a placeholder left empty. I didn't move from the window for a long time. I just watched that angel-shaped hollow, waiting for something to fill it. December 24th, Christmas Eve morning. The sky is a flat, featureless white, reflecting the 2 feet of snow that now smother Frostwood. The storm has passed, leaving an eerie, pressurized silence in its wake. I may be slept an hour total. My eyes feel gritty, my thoughts slow and sticky as cold syrup. Every time I closed them, I saw it. That angel-shaped hollow in the snow and the tall, still shadow watching from the tree line. I came downstairs to a scene of forced normalcy that was more unnerving than any overt fear. The Christmas tree lights were blinking in their cheerful, mindless sequence. The smell of coffee and burnt toast filled the air. My mother was scrubbing the already clean kitchen counter with a kind of frantic intensity. My father was sitting at the table staring at the steam rising from his mug, not drinking, just staring. The advent calendar pin had been moved to the gift box symbol. It looked less like an embroidery and more like a target. Morning, I croaked, my voice raw. My mother jumped, a tiny, bird-like motion.
Alex, you're up. Good.
She didn't turn around.
There's something for you. Under the tree.
My blood turned to ice water. For me? From who? My father finally moved, lifting his head. His face was pale, the lines around his eyes etched deep.
No tag.
He said, his voice hollow.
It just appeared.
The air in the warm kitchen turned freezing. I walked into the living room on legs that didn't feel like my own. And there it was, isolated from the bright, full-wrapped presence from distant aunts and generic office secret Santas. It sat directly under the lowest bough, on a bed of synthetic white fur that now seemed like a cheap imitation of the real snow outside. The package was small, no larger than a book. The wrapping paper was the color of a nicotine stain, a sickly yellow-brown. It was crinkled, not with care, but as if it had been wadded into a ball and then hastily smoothed out. It was tied with a length of ordinary kitchen twine, knotted in a simple, brutal-looking square knot. The second admonition screamed in my skull. Do not bring it fully into your home. But it was already here, nestled among the symbols of our domestic joy like a tumor. Take it to the old willow. Before sunrise. Sunrise was a distant memory, ours past. The ritual was already compromised.
Maybe it's from Mrs. Henderson next door.
My mother called from the kitchen, her tone desperately bright.
A thank you for always being so friendly to Bandit.
The name hung in the air, a ghost in the room. I heard my father's chair scrape back violently. I crouched down. I didn't want to touch it. A low, subaudible hum seemed to emanate from it. Not a sound, but a vibration I felt in my teeth. And the smell. Faint, buried under pine needles and cinnamon candles, but unmistakable. That deep, wet earth, root cellar smell. It clung to the paper. What do? I whispered, not expecting an answer. My father appeared in the doorway, a silhouette against the bright kitchen light.
The rules are clear, Alex.
He said, but there was no strength in his voice, only a profound, weary defeat. But the time for that has passed. It's in the house now. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw not the stern protector, but a terrified bull who had also once found a mysterious package.
The choice is yours now.
The weight of his words, of his abdication, crushed me. He was passing the burden. The debt, if that's what it was, had been delivered, and I was the addressee. I picked it up. It was shockingly light, almost weightless, as if it were full of feathers or ash. But it wasn't fragile. It felt dense, inert, and it was warm. Not the ambient warmth of the room, but a deep, localized heat, like a stone that is baked in the sun all day and now radiates its stored energy. In the cool evening, this was wrong. All of it was wrong. I didn't take it to the willow. I carried it upstairs, cradling the warm, malevolent little box, and locked my bedroom door. I placed it in the center of my desk. It sat there, an accusation, a question. I spent the morning just looking at it as the gray daylight bled across the room. The choice, as my father said, was mine. But what were the options? Follow a broken rule, or satisfy the corrosive, terrifying curiosity that was eating me alive from the inside? What was inside? What was the price of looking, and what was the price of never knowing?